Harry's wife, her digital army. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Many of you listening to me have had a run-in of sorts with the sugars, or the sugar lumps, as I prefer to call them, given the fact that they are a group of idiots with a collective IQ that just about gets into double digits. The problem with this group is that it is either made up of paid agents of hatred, individuals that saw something of themselves in Harry's wife, and either continue to cling on to that through their own delusions, or bitterly disappointed that she's not turned out to be the saviour that they thought she is. They just cannot accept that they've been let down, and they continue with their blind devotion towards her. Then there are others, ones who are perhaps more prominent and have more power, who see that Harry's wife is in effect a useful idiot, that she can be utilised to press a particular agenda, to be utilised by anti-monarchists, to be utilised by certain aspects on the left to get their way in terms of calling out the perception of racism. This group frequent the cyberspace. They're perhaps at their most vitriolic on Twitter. And many people have reported upon the fact where they've tried to engage in a reasonable discourse with these individuals, only to be met with complete brick-wall dunderheadedness and then moving on to out-and-out malicious vitriol. There are instances of people being doxed by members of what is called the Sussex Squad, individuals who've been threatened, had reference made to their real names and addresses, their children and so forth. Of course, what this vitriolic group engages in is the hypocrisy of its mistress, bleating on about how you should be kind to people, tolerant to people, except, of course, when you disagree with us, in which case you're then fair game for our vitriol and innate nastiness. Many of these individuals, as I said, are in the pay of Harry's wife and others in order to continue to spout the lazy rhetoric of perceived racism when it's nothing of the sort. Many of these individuals have loud voices to mask the fact that they are actually few in number. Vocal in cyberspace, but it could be seen from overall coverage and particularly the result of polls, for instance, that the numbers are small. Indeed, in certain instances where comment is made about Harry's wife which is detrimental to her, the defenders are nowhere to be found, possibly because they can't muster it up as a consequence of their poor English, or more likely as a consequence of the fact that they're now spread rather thin, and they have to populate certain places engaging in pylons, for instance, that suffered by Joanna Weiss, the author of the narcissism allegation in Politico just recently. There are other commentators, of course, that see the nastiness and the transparent nature of Harry's wife's digital army. These supporters are her coterie, individuals that show a blind adherence to supporting her, that they believe that what they're doing is fair and right. Some think that she's hard done to, and they are actually people that care about other people, but they've nailed their colours to the wrong mast. Many of these individuals are just downright unpleasant individuals, mainly normals who engage in trolling, some narcissists naturally amongst them, that cannot stand the fact of Harry's wife being accused of certain things and not being the hero that they believe that she is. Furthermore, they use her. They use her as a stick to beat the establishment with, to beat white people with, to beat rich people with, taking out their petty insecurities on these groups, utilising Harry's wife. They don't actually care about Harry's wife. They just pretend that they do because she serves a purpose for them. Freddie Gray, in The Spectator, writes, "What Harry's wife's digital army has in common with trans activists. If Harry's wife's army of digital defenders didn't exist, we'd have to make them up. Otherwise, the never-ending controversy over Harry and Harry's wife, the royal couple turned Netflix show, would not really be controversial. And all the tens of thousands of media articles, such as the one you are now listening to me read out, would not just be pointless, but defunct. There'd be nobody to argue with, and nothing to argue about, apart from Brexit, obviously, and Matt Hancock. Harry's wife's digital army does exist, however. They are, like radical trans activists, a minority who manage to make a lot of noise, chiefly because most of us derive considerable satisfaction from the shared feelings of irritation that they generate. Occasionally, the gods of the media headings, the great outrage algorithms above the sky, will grant the Duke and Duchess of Sussex supporters a win to keep us all interested. That's why Jeremy Clarkson had to be publicly shamed for his silly paragraph, a bad joke at worst, in The Sun, in which he wished that Harry's wife would be paraded naked through the streets. Clarkson's daughter took to Instagram to denounce him, the most nepo babyish act any child can do. Some 20,000 people complained to Ipso, and The Sun apologised. Over Christmas tables across the country, every boringly right-wing uncle or aunt had to be informed by his or her tiresomely woke nephews or nieces that Clarkson had gone too far. This is how the discourse, as online people call it, works. After successfully parading Clarkson naked and ashamed through their feeds, the Sussexites are fired up and gunning for more. They are duly making another fuss about an article in Politico entitled 2022 is the year we all finally got tired of narcissists. The author of the piece, Joanna Weiss, makes the perfectly reasonable argument, expressed more in hope than anything, that our patience is fading when it comes to those who use attention as currency and ego as fuel. She included what happened this year to Harry and Harry's wife, along with Donald Trump, Elon Musk and Kanye West, as well as the tech rip-off artist Elizabeth Holmes and Sam Bankman-Fried. Weiss was hardly venomous about the Sussexes. They seemed tiresome, but genuinely well-intentioned, she wrote. But the fact that she had cast them alongside such dangerous right-wing egomaniacs as Trump, Musk and West triggered an angry weather event on social media. A barrage of media-savvy figures demanded Politico issue an apology for having published the offending article. Nick Lepara, the author of something called Let's Give a Damn, me neither, told the publication to do better. The entrepreneur, Christopher Boozy, a contributor to the Harry and Harry's Wife documentary, said that the article attacked Harry's wife for having defended herself while black. These Harry's wife haters all have something in common, added Boozy, a man who doesn't appear lacking in self-regard. Harry's wife got the prince, and you must learn to deal with it. Of course, that reaction neatly disproves Weiss's thesis, though not in the way the Harry's wife fans think. A lot of people want 2022 to be the year that narcissism lost its influence. We've wished the same every year since the social internet began. Pathological narcissists aside, we all want to be less interested in attention as currency and ego as fuel, but we can't help ourselves. And that's the point. What overbearing egos really fuel is anger, and sadly, that as Harry's wife and Harry prove, is an ever-abundant power source. We all feel it, one way or another. Interesting observations there from Mr. Gray in relation to the uproar that has been generated by the digital army, the sugar lumps of Harry's wife. But what this does enable us to do is see how the coterie of a narcissist responds and how often those in the coterie engage in the very similar behaviours to that of the narcissist. Sometimes because they're narcissists themselves, but more usually because they've been taken in and brainwashed by what the narcissist has spouted. And their belief in what the narcissist has said causes them to act in a nasty fashion. So that many of these individuals who are normals lash out at other people, particularly through the internet, because they have no emotional empathy for them. And it's similar in the way that certain trans activists behave. And it wouldn't be a surprise to find if many of those in the digital army are also trans activists as well, aka internet trolls. And if you want to know who forms those, watch my video, The Online Troll. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.